Paul. I'm Director for Digital and Resources at Adur and Worthing. So Adur and Worthing were one of the first councils that joined up. So we have a shared management team and two separate political bodies. So my responsibility is obviously for IT, that's the, all of it, and then the back office stuff, including finance, which comes in handy. I'm going to say a few things and then let Dave take us through the PowerPoint. So this event, Local Government as a Platform, I think Gavin mentioned it and Richard pointed to it as well. Tim O'Reilly's view of local government as a platform is very much about the place and the people who could provide value in the place and making much better use of communities, partner organisations and the council. But traditionally, we have this problem of partner organisations living in silos, and of course the IT is a massive way that rigid vertical structure remains. But we're in the internet era now, so what does the internet mean for us when we think about tackling that problem in a new way? Because what we see in places is, rather than really good coordination deeply between professionals working in the system, we see huge duplication. And we also know that culturally our instinct is to provide service rather than look at where new assets can be brought to bear on solving problems. So the big difference to the way people have thought about these problems in the past, and all of those multi-agency meetings that many of you will have been in, the same old problem comes up about our systems hosted on site and so on. So what does the internet do for us, and how do we make a start? Really, as we go through what we want to talk about, our vision is very much for an ecosystem of internet-enabled organisations in a place that can interoperate at a deep level, professionals, people self-serving, and that's where we need to be headed. But how the heck do you do something about that? Where do you start? And I think it's really important for us as digital professionals with an ambition really to be more than just IT folk. It's about digital service design, but really the place to start is with our own organisations and essentially making our councils interoperable and off the internet. So we think very much about the Lego blocks, the capabilities, the technical capabilities that underpin the new operating model, if you like, for the council. And if we solve that, then we become the kind of organisation that can influence others to take the same journey, and then can start to build digital services that are truly agnostic about what organisations we work for, and we can build digital services that involve different types of professionals from different organisations using internet platforms to allow those services to be designed and built. So when we try and make a start with this journey, we do need, as digital practitioners, to solve problems of our chief executive, in other words, to drive our efficiencies, which the guys have talked about. And of course, to gain a reputation, to gain a sense of being able to deliver, we have to tackle problems that are being discussed around the chief exec's senior management team table. So that's where we've begun. We started in January 15 after a few months of strategic development. We have managed to switch off some software and to drive out some savings. So we've saved about 200,000 off the revenue budget so far from 16-17. That gives us that kind of solid foundation, we think, to be able to say we can deliver, we can come and help you as a service. Think about the internet, think about service design, think about changing how you operate and how customers and citizens can do more in that kind of service design process. Because the fundamental problem, as I think we all probably know, is the vast number of databases and applications that we have in our legacy estate hardwire the old business, pre-digital business processes and paper-based processes. Companies came along to essentially digitize those paper processes, and they really stifle innovation, because if you try and do an innovation session with a service that's up for it and wants to change, the computer tends to say no. So how do you get the platform which allows you to do digital service design in a flexible, fast, rapid way? So I'm really keen to sort of talk to you guys about, maybe in the breakout sessions, how do you make a start in terms of a project getting going where you work? Because I think you can get really good top-down leadership, which is what we've been very, very fortunate to have, but also there are ways perhaps to start to build smaller kind of skunk work type units and projects that sort of show people how this can work. So I'm really keen to sort of look at the different models of how you get stuff done in your localities. But I'll hand over to Dave now, and he can take us through.
Something weird's happening here. Oh, right, okay. So, brilliant. So, as we can see, Gavin had sort of architectural diagrams. Richard had clouds and blobs. I, though, have bullet points, which I think is much more in keeping in the local government feed of the day. So what I'm going to do is, because I don't really understand what's happening with these buttons, I'm going to... Why doesn't this work, Gavin? Do you know why this isn't working?
Richard obviously broke it.
I think oh, hang on. Brilliant. I was looking at the wrong screen. That's quite embarrassing. Okay. So I'm sort of in charge of the computers at AD. And as you can see, PowerPoint is not particularly a skill of mine, which is just as well, because we don't use it very much. So what I'm going to talk very quickly about in the time remaining, Paul sort of set out brilliantly there sort of our vision for this, and that whole sort of notion of LGaaP is actually really important to the way that we're thinking about the way that our organisation is going to work. And again, the chaps earlier on have identified those different bits in terms of there's some technology bits here, but perhaps the much wider implication has nothing to do with technology at all, and we're going to sort of outline some of that. So our sort of strategy really has got sort of 5 main themes, and I'll canter through them. The first most important one, I think, for us, this is why we're doing all of this, is to help the council become the organisation it wants to be, basically, or the organisation it needs to be, possibly the organisation that the communities that it's working in need it to be. And this is this idea of a sort of council as a platform is what that's all about for us. So it's kind of looking at digital age organisations, these sort of organisations that are of the internet that sort of Paul was talking about earlier, and thinking about how they work and how they operate and how we can learn lessons from that in terms of because, as we've sort of discussed, the huge sort of budget cuts and things that we're all facing, we don't want to cut our frontline services. We want to protect the frontline. We need to, invest in the human beings, because actually that's really, really important. For us, digital transformation is not about making everybody do things on computers. It's acknowledging the fact that there are some things we must have human beings available to do. So how do we ensure that we can always do that? And there are models that we can copy where you have extremely small, tight, ruthlessly efficient back offices which enable people out in the front line to do their own thing. And that's not just in sort of the world of sort of startups and all of that kind of thing, but this is starting to happen in public service as well. Could do a whole sort of talk on the subject, but there's a great Dutch community nursing organisation called Bertzorg, which I encourage you all to have a Google about, which has, again, tens of thousands of fully autonomous sort of community nursing teams around the Netherlands. And they have a tiny back office, of about 30 people who process the invoices, basically, and it works, and that's the kind of thing we want to be looking at to do. So how do we do that? And again, sort of we've identified earlier on today that there are these two. There's the sort of the tech change and the non-tech change, and how do we do that in a sort of a joined-up kind of way? So one of the things that we've done at Ada Worthing, which I think is interesting, and is actually to bring organisational development and join it with the digital team. So my team now sort of includes our OD function, so that we can do sort of a proper end-to-end single humans and computers change function, which is what all of that stuff's about. The second theme of our strategy is about redesigning services with users at their heart. So this is enabling radical rethinking of what we deliver and how we do that. It's employing sort of service design techniques, increasing our capability in terms of actually being able to really look at our services, to put needs first at all times, whether it's our customers, but also, of course, our staff, where we've got internal systems and that kind of thing. And really rethinking not just the how we deliver a service, but why we deliver it, who actually should be delivering it, and what it actually sort of looked like, and that sort of thing. And again, as Paul intimated earlier, we need the technology to enable that to happen. So the third theme, and this is where we start getting into the technology, is that we aim to use the best of breed sort of technology that we can. We're looking to build end-to-end new digital services, so we're not just sort of slapping digital lipstick onto a legacy pig. We're actually sort of getting rid of the legacy where we can. We're actually sort of getting rid of those old applications, switching them off, moving to new digital age sort of platform-based technology. And we're doing that by investing in capabilities rather than systems. So this is sort of key to sort of the local government as a platform idea, but rather than having a housing system, a waste management system, whatever, an environmental health system, all these siloed systems, when you look across all of those systems, they all do pretty much the same thing. There's some case management, there's some reporting, there's some booking, it takes payments, it does assessments, that kind of thing. So what we've done is we've invested in sort of a hybrid bit of technology. There's a bit of Salesforce in there. There's also a bit of a low-code platform called Matsoft, which is what we're using to build out our applications. And what that enables us to do is to build those individual capabilities. We build up those Lego blocks, which we can then start to put together in the right order to deliver the systems that we need to do. And our first products on that system are just going live at the moment, which are our waste management products. But the important thing for us to, and what we have to keep reminding colleagues about at times, is that, as Paul said, we've been working on this since the start of the year. It's not taken us 11 months to build a waste management system. It's taken us 11 months to build a system for all the services that we deliver. It just so happens that the first thing we've configured on it is waste management. So that's what we've done. And the other thing, of course, is that we're also obviously continuing to be responsible for the existing IT estate. There are some capabilities that are probably going to always exist in those traditional line of business applications that we'll never be able to get rid of. So we need to make sure that we're continuing to invest in that stuff. Like Richard, we're looking at moving all of our legacy infrastructure into the cloud for various sort of reasons that he outlined, of which cost is one, but it's not probably the main one. The fourth sort of key theme of the strategy is around supporting people to deliver change. So again, this is where the sort of the digital OD sort of merger really starts to help. So as well as those technology capabilities, the bookings, the reportings, the payings, and all that kind of stuff, what are the people capabilities that we need as an organisation to deliver change on, if we're honest, a sustained basis? We're going through sort of a number of restructures and that kind of thing within the organisation. We need to be open and honest with everybody to say that this is by no means the end. This is how it's going to be pretty much from now on. It's going to be a constant cycle of change. And we need people to be able to cope with that and to be able to operate within that kind of an environment. So we're looking to develop those people capabilities. We're developing sort of the local public service lab to help us, that sort of skunk works idea, to enable us to really sort of drive forward innovation within a sort of safe environment where it's appropriate. And we're ensuring that people have access to the tools and techniques and processes to actually sort of make change happen. And again, this isn't something where we're looking to pick a one-size-fits-all methodology for this, like sticking everybody through Lean or everybody through Six Sigma or whatever it might be. It's acknowledging that different services are at different maturity levels in terms of their development and their digitisation and all that kind of stuff. And it's picking the most appropriate set of tools for us to be able to sort of take that service and move it to where it sort of needs to be. And, again, key to LGaaP is the notion of platforms and stuff. So, we want to be able to consume as well as create on our platform, and we also want to be able to consume and create on other people's platforms. And this is really key. This is where we start becoming, if you like, systems leaders within the local space, cutting down some of those silos between sectors, between bits of our own sector and the various and the local system and that kind of thing. It's making sure that our platforms and capabilities, both tech-wise and people-wise, can be used by other actors within our system. So in other words, one of the things that Paul and I will be absolutely delighted about is when we have an organisation, not the council, delivering a local service in our area with a system that they've built using our capabilities on our platform. That's the place where we need to be. Not the council becoming a software developer for all the other organisations in our system, but them actually building their own stuff on our platform. Just as on iOS, for example, you have applications developers building applications on Apple's platform. That's kind of where we need to be with our technology. But we also want it to be like that with our other assets, with people, skills, knowledge, buildings, spaces, all that kind of stuff. It's about turning all of our assets into platforms that other people can build on. And as I say, and also for us to be sort of grown up enough to acknowledge where other people have the lead, where they've developed a capability, where they've already established a platform, that actually we go and play on their space, where it's appropriate for us to do so and where sort of, it makes sense, so that we're not having to continually sort of reinvent all of these wheels. So, just to sort of to summarise a few bits. So some of the technical capabilities that we've already built, they're sort of starting to be deployed, and this isn't all of them, but you can see some of these things that we're doing. So in other words, when people come to us with a need, what we have to do is we have to sort of genericise that. We need to abstract it back as much as we possibly can to come up with what is this sort of the generic capability that we're talking here. So people often come with you with a specific user need. What we then need to do is completely sort of genericise that so that then it can be deployed in different circumstances. But what we can then do is take that generic capability and configure it and customise it to use in that specific niche that we're talking about. And so you can see some of the things there, obvious things around service case management, about the way our data architecture works, the way that we manage sort of different types of person, place and business data, creating documents and storing them, bookings, assessments, payments, and all that kind of stuff. Some of the products we're building, as I mentioned, we're just sort of building our waste management products. And the important thing to state here again is going back to that point about building end-to-end digital services. So when because we're not sort of building sort of, if you like, forms that then sort of have to send information into another sort of back office system, it's all the same interface. So when we've got a customer ordering a new green bin online, for instance, using a web form, the form they're typing that into is exactly the same interface, if you like. It's the same system they're typing stuff into that sits in the cabs of the guys that drive around ready to deliver. So our head of service for waste management has a dream, and it's quite, it's what keeps him up at night, fine. But he has this dream whereby actually somebody will have a bin delivered before they've even put the phone down or whatever to do that. And technically that could happen if they've decided to call up the contact centre to do it. If perhaps the contact centre agent they're talking to has spectacular powers of filibuster, then it's possible that the moment they hit save on that thing to say they want a new green bin, there's a van driving past, they could get a bin in their system to say, oh, this house wants a new green bin, and they just do it. Theoretically, it's possible because it's one single sort of system. So we're building a new HR system. We built a neat little service directory app for our sort of caseworkers who are going out talking to troubled families. And that was a great example of both the advantages of capability-based platform technology and this low-code platform that hopefully we'll be able to show you when you come and see us. Because we're able to build this stuff so quickly. So we got a service directory is an interesting one. It's dead simple. The interface is just a couple of drop downs. Whereabouts are you? What service does the family want? Do they have issues with addiction or gambling or health issues, whatever it might be? It just gives you a list of services that you can then point them towards and send them the information for. Previously, they were carrying a gigantic bag full of leaflets around with them everywhere they went. They've been asking for this particular app for about 4 years, and it's just a really simple thing. One of my guys on our team, because we've built all these capabilities already, because we're using a low-code platform, you drag and dropped, a bit of configuring, it was done in about 2 hours, and they were able to go and start using it. So that's the speed that we can do with all this kind of stuff. The final one, needs and offers, is one that we haven't really started. We're only sort of scoping it up at the moment. This is one that really excites me, because this is a piece, if you like, of genuine sort of platform, sort of local place platform. You can almost think about it as civic digital infrastructure, if you like. So again, it came from a quite specific request about we have a volunteering scheme within the council. We need somewhere where people can say, these are the skills that I've got, I want to volunteer, these are the skills and things that I've got, and then we can have those organisations that are looking for volunteers listing the things that they want. Basically, it's a dating site, isn't it? It'll link the two of them up. Now, that's absolutely fine, but then we think, well, actually, hang on, abstract this a minute. There are people outside the council that might find something like this quite useful. As for instance, our local CBSs and that kind of thing would no doubt like find volunteering system. We ought to open this up. Then, of course, you think, let's take another bit of a step back, and we realise that actually it's not about volunteering, it's about needs and it's about offers. And actually, if you built a generic needs and offers system for an entire place, whether those needs are assets or skills or time or whatever it might be, suddenly you've got a really interesting piece of digital civic infrastructure that can be used to genuinely start to transform the way that any service is developed in the entire area. So that's really, really exciting, and probably really, really hard as well, but we'll update you at some point on that. If it goes quiet, it was too hard, I think probably is the answer there. So just to summarise, lessons we're learning, actually, as I've just mentioned, actually doing things this way is really, 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 really difficult, and it is this constantly having to sort of to step back, to genericise, to actually think about taking needs, delivering the generic capability, and then configuring back to deliver that actual need. But actually it is worthwhile doing it, because once you've done it once, then it becomes an awful lot easier and quicker to do it for everybody else. The other key thing for me, if you like, as a head of service, is that having air cover at the very top is really, really helpful. Spectacularly helpful that I've got a director who gets it. But no, it's very, very helpful. He's got digital in his job title. He sits at the top table with the chief exec. The chief exec, again, understands this stuff. We're also spectacularly lucky at Adur Worthing in that our political leadership are also really, really into this, and they see the value of it, and they're willing to invest in it. They can take those risks as well. The other really important thing, I think, is around sort of bagging the savings as early as we possibly can. As you can tell, probably, the numbers we're dealing with at Adur Worthing are a bit smaller than these chaps, with much smaller councils, but nonetheless, sort of the fact that we've been set a £200,000 target for our first year of our programme, the fact that we're able to deliver that in plenty of time gives you credibility and enables us to go and do some other more interesting things. The other one is not being afraid of chucking some tactical bombs. So back in April, we went Google. We swapped out all sort of Microsoft stuff for our email, particularly in calendars and that kind of thing. And to be honest with you, partially we did it just to irritate everybody, and it worked. I mean, there are some great benefits of it. We save a bit of money, fine, but actually the innovation that's come from rolling out Google has been tremendous, and also it just enables us to be a lot more flexible and stuff in the way that we work. So it's fantastic from that point of view. But it was also something where, and we did the whole project in just under 6 weeks, I think, from start to finish. So it was very, very rapid. It was literally the case that people turned up to work one day and everything was different. And, in a good way, mostly. But printers stopped working, that's fine. As I say, it was that sign to everybody that we're in a new world now, that actually everything is different. The one application that everybody spends more of their time in anything else, their email inbox, was taken away from them. They had something new instead, and it worked differently, and they had to get around that. So that was really, really interesting, and I think continuing to chuck those kind of bombs into the organisation is vital to make any of this stuff work. Otherwise, people get too settled, and it doesn't change. And the other bit is don't ever stop talking about it, because one of the things that we've noticed is that the moment you go quiet for any length of time, people just forget. They retrench back into sort of old ways of doing things and that kind of thing. So the absolute sort of vital thing for us is that don't pause for breath, keep going out there, keep talking to people, and don't let them forget what you're doing and why you're doing it. And that's us done. Thank you.